Hi guys, welcome to tonight's sleep class. We're going to be talking about sleep schedules, specifically for babies over 4 months old. Just going to give a few minutes to wait for everyone to jump on if there's people joining me tonight. And we'll kind of get started. So tonight we're talking about sleep schedules, and we're talking about babies older than 4 months. So we know that babies younger than 4 months, we can't really put them on the schedule because they don't have those hormones that are responsible for creating their schedule within a 24-hour clock. So I'm going to be talking about babies and children over 4 months, and then I'm going to be breaking it down into specific age groups and what their schedules should look like depending on what age they're at. This is perfect timing. All right, great. So we're going to be talking about kind of like the who, what, where, and how of sleep schedules. So what a sleep schedule is, it's pretty self-explanatory, but it's basically a guideline to follow to make sure that your child is getting adequate and good quality sleep. I say guideline because it's not like we can't be kind of to the minute. It has to be somewhat flexible. And I can go into further detail about that, but we say a little bit flexible, but we want to make sure that they're napping and sleeping at specific times throughout the day. And when I'm doing any of my consultations with my families, I always talk about sleep as a puzzle. And there's specific pieces that need to come together in order to create a cohesive sleep kind of hygiene for your family and for your child. Those being the sleep routine, the sleep schedule, self-soothing skills, safe sleep environment, all that kind of put together. So sleep schedule, sleep routine is like a small aspect of the puzzle. Self-soothing skills is a pretty big one. Sleep schedule is a other major big one. So it's super important for them to be sleeping at the proper times. And we'll talk about those proper times tonight. So who needs a sleep schedule, or who needs a schedule in general? Everyone over 4 months old. We know that humans, as a species, we thrive on schedules. We're very habitual. Most people do better when they're on a schedule, when they know what to expect and their bodies know what to expect at certain times of the day. It's also biology. It's instinctual, and we're born to be on schedules. We have a internal clock that regulates body temperature, our hunger, our eating, our sleep, obviously. It's in our nature. So we need to kind of pay attention to that and get our babies on that schedule so they can take advantage of that really good sleep time for them. Another good reason that everyone needs to be on a schedule is it makes family life easier. You can plan activities and events and outings without having to guess, oh wait, so she got up at this time, so she'll probably be tired enough then, but if then she doesn't go down for a long enough nap, it's a guessing game. Your whole day is kind of off. But if you know they'll be napping at this time for this long usually, and then again at this time, it's much easier to plan your day. As parents and families, we can get stuff done that we need to get done. Again, it's not a guessing game, so it just makes life in general easier. So the reason that we wait until after 4 months is, if you've heard the term before, that's when we get our circadian rhythms. That's when babies form their circadian rhythms. All humans over that age have circadian rhythms, and that is the flow of different hormones throughout a 24-hour period. So it's flows of the hormone melatonin, which is our sleep hormone, and adrenaline, which is our wake hormone, and other hormones throughout the day, but those ones in terms of sleep are the most important ones. It's pretty sciencey when you kind of get into the nitty gritty of it all. But basically, it's the Earth's light and dark cycle, so sun and dark, how our bodies respond to that, gives our brain cues, and that internal clock, that master clock in our brain, it gives us cues as to what we should be doing at certain times. It also regulates, so it regulates our hormones, it regulates our body temperature, so it affects our eating patterns, and it does all that kind of stuff to make sure that we're doing the same things in a 24-hour period. I don't want to get too deep into all that stuff because it gets pretty sciencey, and but we have to know that within that 24-hour period, our bodies get those waves of hormones. We notice it when we start getting, if we're up past our bedtime, we start getting like we're tired. We know it's past our bedtime. We also get a lull and we get tired around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Some people think it's because you had a really heavy lunch. It's not. It's because our bodies are naturally giving us a boost of melatonin, that sleep hormone. Because we're kind of geared to have a nap at that time. And some societies actually, they have their siesta. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Because our bodies are geared to sleep at that time. So, again, we said those those hormones are regulated by the sun and by our life patterns. So basically, the habits that we form and the cues that we give our body, like we're always eating at certain times of the day, we're always waking up at certain times of the day. We see the sunlight and we see the darkness at certain times of the day. All plays a part. So when we get these natural highs of melatonin, that's when we want our babies to be sleeping. And when we get our natural boost of adrenaline, that's when we want our babies to be awake. We do this because when they are getting that natural boost of melatonin, they're primed for a really good restorative sleep. That's when they're going to have the best sleep possible. And when I say best sleep, I mean the most, I said already restorative, but the healthiest sleep in terms of the sleep they can get. An analogy I make is, if you were to eat a super healthy meal or, hamburger and french fries, yeah, it's still food. Yeah, it's still going to fill you up. One is healthy, one is junk. So you're going to get better stuff out of the healthy food than you were to the junk. Same with healthy sleep and junk sleep. So healthy sleep is that sleep we can get at those restorative nap times. Junk sleep is the sleep that we get that's not so in those restorative nap times. So it's still sleep, it's just not doing as much for them as it should be. When they're in that high melatonin sleep, their bodies work. They're supporting their brain function. That's when they're doing all their physical growing and learning and developing. The sleep when they can get during those restorative times, it's helping them learn. It's helping them with problem solving skills, coordination, so that physical aspect of it, their ability to control their emotions and their behavior. Just like that's when their bodies do that's when their brains do all their work. Also, when they can get into that deep restorative sleep, that's when their growth hormone is released. So, babies are growing so much, babies and toddlers are growing so much in those first couple of years. If they're not getting the sleep at those restorative times, they're not physically growing properly, which that growth hormone needs to be secreted at a certain pace in order for them to have adequate growth, and also to heal their bodies off of sicknesses and illnesses, and keep supporting their immune system, keep their lungs and heart functioning the way it should. So that's the kind of why we need to make sure that they're on these sleep schedules. I see some people are posting some questions, and I'm going to probably try and get to those. But I kind of want to stay on task here. But yeah, I would love a daily siesta. I know. they're great. um, all right. So, so what we have to do now as parents is be respectful of the fact that our babies need these sleep schedules, and try and stick to it as much as possible. I know sometimes when I say, like, your baby should be napping at this time and at this time and for 2 hours ideally, and they're thinking, well, that means I'm never leaving my house again, which babies at a certain age, they are sleeping so much, and because they need to, but it doesn't mean that you're on house arrest. It just means whenever possible, have those naps, be consistent with them, and stick to that schedule. Like I said before, once we create the schedule for them, it is almost easier for you guys to plan for moms to plan our days, because we can, plan to do our outings or our baby activities or our baby yoga classes and all those kind of things between the nap times or after the nap times, instead of worrying about them falling asleep in the car, then not having such a good nap, and things like that. So once we get that schedule in place, it's a little bit easier to plan things, and basically make it easier to get to follow that schedule. So again, they're relying on us to set that schedule for them and to make sure that they can be sleeping at those restorative times. So super, super important. If your baby is off schedule, so say having a little bit too much of that junk sleep, as I called it before, you might be noticing things like their naps are super short, like anything under an hour is not adequate. They're not falling into that deep sleep. They can be super wired at bedtime, wired and awake, and like almost like a second wind, like you were just tired like 20 minutes ago. How are you like crazy hyper and rambunctious? This is more like for the toddlers. A lot more night wakings. Well, depending on the age, but generally speaking, a baby over 4 months shouldn't be waking. I mean, the max would be 2 night wakings, and those would be for feeds only. So if your baby is waking more than that, then something's going on with your schedule. They're overtired, and that's causing night wakings. Being overtired from being off schedule can also cause really early morning wake up. So if you're having a habitually 4:30 a.m. waker upper, that's too early, and that's starting their day way too early. But that can be caused by being off schedule, which causes overtiredness, which causes early morning wake-ups. Vicious cycle. So basically, if your baby is not getting naps at the restorative nap times, this is like the big take home. It means they're going to be overtired because they're losing out on the good quality sleep. Overtiredness, or sleep debt as we call it, and I've explained this in another video I did. Sleep debt is, the amount of sleep they're missing out on, that restorative sleep they're missing out on, that causes more problems: the night wakings, the early mornings, the short naps. So again, why I explained why sleep schedule is such a huge integral part of that cohesive puzzle of sleep, because it affects so much. So, okay, how and what your schedule should look like. This is what everyone's waiting for. So the first thing to do to set a schedule is to set, I say that in quotations, a wake up time. So when I say set, I mean within an hour, they should be waking up at the same time every day. We want to do this so that our day starts around the same time, so we can make sure that they're sleeping for the rest of the day. Their naps are going to line up where they should. If some days they're waking up at 6 a.m. and some days they're waking up at 8:30 a.m. and some days they're wishy-washy in the middle, when your day is going to be all over the map and they're not going to be hitting those restorative nap times. So generally speaking, a biologically normal wake time for basically any baby over 4 months really is anywhere between 6 a.m. and 7 ideal. Some can still go to 7:30 and still be tired enough for nap number 1. But so anywhere in between there is where we want them to start their day. So this might mean that if they most likely are sleeping till around the same time every day. And one random day they're sleeping in and it's approaching the 7:30 mark, you'll want to wake them up and start their day for them. If you're not noticing a habit morning wake, if they're still all over the map, like I said, one day it could be 6, one day it could be 8:30. You'll want to consistently wake them at a consistent time for a little while until that regulates in their system. So I would do like a 7 a.m. wake up, and just every day wake them up at 7 a.m. and kind of set that body clock for them. Again, ensuring that the rest of the day will fall into place. So what a sleep schedule should look like for your baby. So we have babies here a little bit all over the map. So I'll just kind of go in order. So 4 to 8 months, your baby's gonna be on 3 or 2 naps a day. And this depends on the length of naps and the quality of naps. Some babies never take a third nap because their first 2 naps are amazing, 2-hour naps, and that's great. Some babies still need that third cat nap till about 8 months is when usually every baby has dropped a third nap by 8 months. The 2 most important naps for this age group, again, this age group is 4 to 8 months, is you're going to have, your nap is most likely going to fall around 8:30 a.m. and about 12:30 p.m. And then that cat nap's going to be about 3 o'clock. The first 2 naps, you're going to want them to be at least an hour and a half each. And then that third cat nap is probably about half an hour, 45 minutes max. And at least 12 hours of sleep at night. So when I say this, yes, there can be a night feed in there. There doesn't have to be if your baby's a healthy weight. You can go ahead and drop night feeds, but we're still aiming for 12 hours of sleep at night. And then moving a little bit older, so 8 to about 18 months, and this kind of fluctuates. But so after 8 months, your baby should no longer be having 3 naps. They should be definitely down to 2 naps. So we want to ensure that they're adequate length so that they can do that and they can make it to a bedtime. So those naps are going to push a tiny bit later and hit the bang on at the restorative nap times at around 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. And we're going to aim for about 2 hours each for those naps. And we still want them getting 12 hours of sleep a night at this age. Some babies like this age group, I went to 18 months because that's basically the average time for them to drop from 2 naps to 1 nap. Some babies are ready to drop it closer to a year. Some babies go almost to 2 years old still having the 2 naps. So it's very, there's a wide spectrum there, but just keep in mind that if they are dropping the second nap, then you'll want to boost up night sleep. So they'll most likely be needing 13 hours of sleep at night. And we'll do that by moving bedtime earlier. Excuse me, I have kind of the hiccups now. So 18 months to 3 years, possibly beyond, we're looking at 1 nap. And like I said, 18 months, it could be closer to 2 years old. But this is just a generalization. 18 months to 3 years, they're taking 1 nap, and that should fall basically around 12:30, 1 o'clock to hit that really restorative nap. And we're aiming for about 2 to 3 hours nap and still 12 hours at night. The 2 to 3 hours, again, that can fluctuate as well as they get closer to 3 years old. You might notice if they're taking that long nap, it's affecting bedtime and it's affecting their nighttime sleep. That's when you'll start cutting that nap a little bit shorter, because we know that bedtime, the sleep at nighttime is, once they get to that age, it's much more important for them to be having than the over 2 hour naps during the day. So we want to be mindful of that. And you can see that, from 4 months to 3 years, we're still expecting at least 12 hours of sleep at night. So that basically never changes, until they hit like 4 or 5 years old is when you can start. Sometimes they'll lower to about 11 hours of sleep at night. But some don't. He just turned 5. My 5-year-old still does basically 12 hours of sleep at night. So that kind of in a nutshell is what your baby sleep schedule should look like. And forgot to mention how to schedule bedtime in there. But paying attention to the 12 hours of sleep they need at night, and then also going back to how I said most babies have kind of a habit of what time they're waking up in the morning. So you need to kind of take that into consideration as well. If your baby is always waking up at 6 a.m., then in order to give them 12 hours of sleep at night, we need them to be sleeping by 6 p.m. And vice versa, if they're waking up at 6:30 a.m., 6:30 p.m. Always keeping that in mind. We also keep bedtime on somewhat of a flexible schedule, and we watch their wake time. So, the magic rule is never exceed 4 hours from the time they woke up from the lunchtime nap. So on the younger ones, we are not including the cat nap in there at all. We're basically pretending that it didn't happen. But so we watch what time they woke up from that lunchtime nap, being the 12:30 or 1 o'clock nap, and we count 4 hours from there. That's when their bedtime should be at the latest. Some are much earlier, especially our 4, 5, 6-month-olders, because they just can't make the 4 hours. Even if they do have a cat nap in there, 4 hours wake is still too much. Beyond the 4 hours, that's when their body starts hitting them with adrenaline. So that's when we start seeing they can't physically calm down and fall asleep. They're wired, or they fall asleep right away, but they're up, within an hour. That's also means that they fell asleep in a heightened adrenaline state. So all this stuff, all this schedule stuff really plays a huge role in how well they can fall asleep, how well they can stay asleep. And then we can start doing the other things like teaching them the self-soothing skills. Well, generally we do it all together, but we have to have a good schedule in place. You can't just throw in a sleep training method when our schedule is all out of whack. It's just not fair to them, right? We're not setting them up for success. So that's why sleep schedules are super important. Okay, I'm gonna try and answer some questions if I can. To see. Oh yeah, Lauren asked for an 18-month schedule, so hopefully I answered that for you, Lauren. Okay, Chelsea, I'm lucky if my 9-month-old naps for 1 hour. How do I help him sleep longer than that? So that's when the sleep training and the teaching him self-soothing skills comes into play. So once we know our schedule is on track and he's sleeping at the proper times, now it's just encouraging to sleep longer for those times. So that of course is more of I'd have to kind of talk to you about that, but we do sleep training for naps just like we would sleep training for night wakings to encourage them to take longer naps. And like I said, we definitely want them to sleep at least an hour. If they're sleeping less than an hour for those first 2 naps, it's just not enough for them. They're not getting into that deep REM sleep that does all that, the brain building and physical building development that I kind of talked about earlier. So super, super important. Oh, my 3-year-old is starting school in September. Yeah. How do I cut out her nap? Most days she wants one. She will be 3, turning 4 at the end of October. Okay, so I would encourage you to just keep her naps until you can. Obviously, when she's at school, she won't be napping. So on school nights for sure, we'll obviously have to move bedtime super early. School in general just takes so much out of them that she'll be exhausted anyways. And then on naps, on weekends, offer her a nap. So basically the only thing we can do once it's out of our control once they're at school. Although I have heard and seen some kids take a little nap at school, but they definitely don't, like, they don't have a nap time like we did when we were in school. But yeah, the only thing we can do to help them out with that is move bedtime earlier and still offer the naps on weekends. Unfortunately, answered your guys' question about sleep scheduling, and you guys have a little better understanding for that. Oh, but that's, you know, what I need to say about sleep schedules. Okay, wait, here's a question. Oh, I missed a few questions. Sorry, guys. 2-year-old, he wakes at 7:45, usually goes for a nap at 11, but if he sleeps 2 to 3 hours, he's hard to put down to bed at 7. He's so miserable. Okay, so what I would do is make sure, so he is sometimes hitting that restorative nap time and sometimes not. I'm sorry, I'm talking to Jade. We're talking about a 2-year-old. So he wakes at 7:45, which is technically okay because he's only on that one nap. So usually that would be a little bit too late, but because he's on the one nap and he doesn't have to worry about getting down close to 9, that's okay. But I would say progress that nap later. So right now it's at 11. Ideally it should be around 12:30 so that he's getting that super restorative time. And then you can watch the timing of it there. So if he's still having the 2-3 hours, so if it's 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, then if we do 4-ish hours from there, that's basically hitting that bedtime that you were already doing. So that should help a lot. It will, that nap, the wake stretch from when he was napping at 11 until 7 might have been too long for him. So he was kind of wired at bedtime. That might be why it's getting hard for him to fall asleep. And then also if we're transitioning nap time a little bit later, he's a little bit more well rested. Well, he will be well rested. He's getting advantage of that really restorative nap time. And that'll get him through that afternoon crankiness that we see in toddlers. But you know, sleeping on that good schedule is kind of night and day for their behavior. It really regulates their behavior. How can I balance the schedule for 3 children in 3 different stages? Yes, 4-year-old and JK, 2-year-old who wants to sleep with mom and dad, and a 4-month-old. Okay, so the kind of good thing about sleep schedules and nap schedules in particular is that after the 4 months, they basically should be napping at the same time. So the younger ones are sleeping in the morning from somewhere around 8:39 for a good hour and a half. And that's when your toddler has, their playtime. And then everyone goes for a nap after lunch around 12:31. Everyone goes for a nap around then. And then generally speaking, bedtime is kind of around the same time too. And unless our younger one is not taking super good quality naps, their bedtime might be a little bit earlier, but sometimes that's nice too. Get the baby down and then you have a little bit of, toddler time and get them down. So that's the nice thing about is once we get them on that schedule, it's much more predictable and everyone gets kind of a message about sleep. Everyone's expected to sleep at nap time, maybe even mommy and daddy too. That's always good. But then throwing the school schedule, yeah, sometimes depending on if we have to drive our kids to school, that can kind of affect morning naps. We just have to kind of do whatever works, try our best, try to work things out. If, one parent can do the school drop off, the other one's home, putting the one for naps, etc. It's kind of the same thing with parents who work late and they, they don't pick up their kid until 5:30 and 6 from daycare. And, schedule says they should be in bed at 6:30. Sometimes it's just impossible. We just have to do what we can when we can, ask for help, try different alternatives. You know, see if they can, you know, get on a bus or before and after school care, all kinds of different things. But I'm just kind of touching on all of them, but I don't know the specifics of this circumstance, but we just got to try our best. All right. Our youngest just turned 2, transitioned out of her crib. Necessity to prepare for camping season. All right. Priorities, eh? Yeah. Summer. Oh, summer sounds so nice. He goes to bed 6:30, stays in bed and sleeps like a dream. Wonderful. He's early waking 5:30. Any ideas? He's napping for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So that is on the earlier end. Generally, I don't like to see anything, especially before 5:30. 5:30 can technically sometimes still be biologically normal, but we don't like it so much. Consistently leave him make sure he's staying in his, I guess he's in a bed now, until at least 6. So kind of train his body to stay in his bed. Since he's a toddler, yeah, he might start using like a visual cue. I don't know, Michelle, if you saw my video on the toddler transition. It was one of it was the first video I did. Using, you know, the sleepy clocks, like the OK to Wake or the Grow clock, and, you know, set it for 6 or even 6:30 to, you know, train his body to stay in bed until that time. And he's having about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So still good naps, and just making sure those naps, I'm not sure when they're happening, but hopefully right around the 1 o'clock time. Bedtime seems like a good time. So yeah, just kind of train his body to be in there again. So yay for you with this springtime change. So now that 5:30 will actually be 6:30 on your clock, and we'll hope that sticks for him then. See if there's any other questions. I hate the idea of starting my day at 6. I know. Is it okay to aim for 7:30? Yeah, 7 is perfectly normal. 7:30, depending on the age, might just not be enough wake time between 7:30 and that 8:30, 9 o'clock nap. So it just depends on age. Laura, for your little one. Yeah, like I said, 7 is totally normal wake time and a good time to start your day. And then there's also, you know, people that may be starting to go back to work, coming off mat leave, or if their child's older and is going to be starting school or starting a daycare. We just have to keep that in mind too, because they might have to start their day at 6:30, you know, in the next few months. So just kind of regulating that off the bat for them. Oh, he naps at 12, Michelle. Okay, good. So that's good. All right, so hopefully I answered everyone's questions. I will leave this video up. You guys can watch it again and again if you'd like. And let me know if you guys think of another topic that you want to hear more of. I'll probably do a newborn one soon, so babies, you know, 0 to 4 months, what we can do for them to get, you know, started on a good sleep foundation, and maybe some other topics soon. Next, I'm looking at my calendar. Next Friday, March 16th, is National Sleep Day. Is that what they call it? So I'm hoping to do like a Facebook question and answer session for that day. Stay tuned. I'll obviously make posts about that. Share this with any parent friends that you guys know. You know, most of my business is by referrals and by sharing, so I really appreciate all of those. So I'll talk to you guys soon, and try and get your babies on those sleep schedules. All right, have a good night.